What's up, Sanctuary and YouTube? Wartheory here. If you want to find targeted items and the probabilities of acquiring them, it is time to start using Diablo 2 drop calculators. During today's review, I will walk through a handful of resources to help you magic find like a pro. One important element to call out about drop calculator resources is that they each have their own mathematical and statistical interpretation of the game data. Therefore, it is not about which is more accurate, but that they are each consistent and directional in their own way. Many existing players have their preferences that they leverage, but each has its own differentiation and benefits. First up in our series is Maxroll. Maxroll is one of the newer drop calculators in the market that hit once Diablo 2 Resurrected arrived. What's great about Maxroll is that it is easily the most comprehensive and feature-rich of any of the legacy options. It also is an extremely interactive and adaptive and responsive site in the way that you can intuitively interact with it. Let's touch on some quick fundamentals of drop calculators that are fairly consistent. First, when you think about the basis of drop calculators, they all require some form of consistent meta inputs, such as the difficulty, players count, party size, and magic find. Most drop calculators are a little bit different in their form and function, but in the case of Maxroll, you can actually run these calculations based on the different types of monster classifications, the areas, and the monster types that are in those areas, or actually looking at the items specifically. Let's touch on some quick fundamentals. So you may remember in some of my other videos that we talked about how the benefit or the internal bonus of player count actually works in Diablo. The idea is that every 2 additional players in the game, so as jumping from P1 to P3, 5, and 7, decreases the no drop chance of monsters. So what this really translates to is a better ratio or opportunity to force items to drop, which increases the ability to find them. Let's look at a quick example using the responsive nature of Maxroll. So if we focus on this first Aaron shield here, Paladin shield, assuming that we have 0 magic find, we are in Hell, we are in Normal and Bloodmore, and we are killing zombies, we have a 1 in 3,300 opportunity to find this, and it also shows the splits of being normal, a superior, magic, or rare in this case. But immediately as I jump from 1 to 7, you're going to notice that these grids just updated, and all of a sudden now it almost went from a 50% reduction from a 1 in 3,000 to 1 in almost 1,400 opportunity to find this item, which again actively demonstrates why you always want to try to be in higher player games if you can without sacrificing your kill speed and your efficiency too much. Party size also has its own internal bonuses. So based on the size of the party and also if the party members are in the area of the kill, that also has its own benefits. But magic find is obviously very critical. Most don't realize that there are different curvatures for magic find percentages based on whether you are hunting unique set rares or magics. So for example, if you have 200 magic find, it doesn't necessarily mean that your unique magic find level is 200. There's a little bit of a dilution in those statistical effects. And I'm going to actually showcase that later on one of the drop calculators. So let's kind of dive into some examples. So if I'm here and I want to look at different super uniques that I can hunt, let's say we are specifically going after Creeping Feature in Stony Tomb level 2, I can influence these numbers and I can say, hey, if I have 300 magic find, you can notice that these just changed in the grid, and I can try to understand, again, what types of items that can drop. I can obviously hover over it really quickly. What are the percentages of those items dropping? So again, in this case, if it's a Belrog Spear, in the case of a Demon Arch, there's a 2.8% chance of it rolling unique, and if it does roll unique, it's going to be the Demon's Arch. For example, we might look at a Phase Blade. So hey, in this case, I wanted to see if I was able to acquire an Azarath or a lightsaber here. I actually cannot. And this is another great function of these drop calculators, is trying to help you understand if you are hunting particular items, can that actual monster in that particular area level, based on their treasure class and monster level combination, actually deliver that item in the RNG of the game. And in this case, looking into Phase Blade, they cannot. If we toggle over to items specifically, let's say we wanted to hunt for a Crown of Ages, this now is going to be a slightly different cut of data because it's not doing it first by monsters and what items those monsters can drop, but it's where specifically can I acquire a Crown of Ages. You can easily look at the filtering on this and you'll notice that, not surprising, Bale, Pindle, Nilithak, among the Bale waves specifically, are all, some of the top opportunities and chances to acquire these items, specifically based on player 7, party size of 1, and 300 magic find. The final thing that I really wanted to hit here with Maxroll is also the ability to dive deep into the treasure class itself. So in this case, again, we're looking at a super unique Act 4 H Super C. I can understand the different item picks, the good tables, what's included in these. Is it rolling from 84s or 87s? In this case, again, we're rolling from the 78 weapons and armors. We are looking at a rune table that drops from rune 16. So essentially what this is saying, in Creeping Features case, he drops from the rune 16 table, so he can get up to Cham rune, but you are not able to acquire a Zod rune, for example, from Creeping Features. So a lot of great information, ways to leverage this, and it's pretty adaptive and easy to use, and overall feature rich. I'm sure many of you have heard of Silospen from the historical past of Diablo 2, and you might still be using it today. It was recently upgraded for D2R, but you still have the ability to reduce it down to 1.14 if you still happen to be a Legacy Lord of Destruction player. What I love about Silospen is the beauty of its simplicity, and honestly, that's okay. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles or the pizzazz of Maxroll, but for many players out there, they just want simple. You want real-time, accurate information at your fingertips, and it doesn't matter if it has all the functionalities or complexities. I just want information. So, similar to Maxroll and other drop calculators, it does of course have its basic inputs. If we stick out again with the player's 7 and or 300 magic find, your monster type, you can kind of choose by different bases. The one difference of Silospen is they have this thing called an Atomic TC. It's actually a little bit of a quirky feature to Silospen where if you want to get down to actually kind of the acronym nature of items and how they relate to treasure class, it's a lot harder to read in the way that it rolls, but if you wanted to have some fun with it, you can kind of poke around, but I think most are still going to stick to item or monster. The one leg up that I believe Silospen actually has over Maxroll is an example I'm about to show you. So let's say we wanted to search for a monarch. We wanted to roll a spirit base. You'll notice here that they have a unique drop down in all, whereas in Maxroll, you have to, on a bespoke basis, only choose one of the difficulties. So as I run this here, you're going to notice that this is running this across all forms of difficulties in the event that items are across them. And you'll see here by parenthesis H that represents hell and parenthesis and M for nightmare, for example. The other thing here that it's actually showing you is the monster type. So when we look at the abominable as the name, it's actually a snow yeti by monster type. This again is not something that you see in Maxroll. So again, a little bit more of targeted game data that it's surfacing. And definitely something that I personally enjoy about using Silospen. However, there is one drawback. So you'll notice that as I toggle away into monster, unfortunately, it doesn't cache on the page. And so the inputs or the selections that I had does actually reset. Grand scheme of things, it's very easy for me to go to P7 and or put in 300 and, make my changes. But I at least wanted to showcase that that is something to watch out for, that if you do toggle between atomic, item, or monster, you will see those changes. This is a historical drop calculator, and it is still one of the more prevalent ones, but it has somewhat flown under the radar. This is actually a calculator that is a German calculator that was done by Tub and a few others. But again, talking about the differentiation and features here, this is really quirky and unique in how it works relative to the others. Not in the way that it obviously rolls the same baseline information, but again, some of the kind of cool native features that are endemically interwoven into this that are different both from Maxroll and Silospen. So starting with this, I want to say that it does require a little bit more information. It is a bit manual. You have to kind of click through and understand what some of these mean. It is a bit more archaic. Also caveating, as you can see here, the last update was 2010. So this is not going to reflect Diablo 2 Resurrected information. Some of you might be saying, well, in theory, why are you showing this? Well, the reason is, at the end of the day, all we really saw in 2.4 were some basic 85 changes, which, yes, sure, these monsters would not reflect those modifications in those specific areas, but majority of the game data is still intact and there wasn't wide changes across it, so I still think it has its use cases. However, what I would recommend and what I'm about to show you is you could simultaneously use this site for different reasons while also then going to Silospen or Maxroll. So you may remember that I teased during the opening on Maxroll that when you input your magic find, there are different bonuses and diluted splits across the different types of items. So if I put in 200 magic find, you're going to notice that this automatically does the mathematical interpretation for us, which shows us that if I have a 200 magic find bonus on my character, that is actually a 111% for uniques, 142 for sets, and so on and so on. There was another site out there in the wild, Atmas, that many may have used, and I think even Warthewise is actually one of the new resources out there that does this exactly, but I love this. If you want to really quickly understand those MF curvatures, definitely come here and use this resource. Again, I will have all these resources linked below, and even if just for understanding what your splits are, this will do this for you. The other cool thing is the next section. So we showed again how the player count and those internal bonuses would manipulate the magic find, but none of the resources really show you how it in real time actually in your view manipulates the no drop. And again, another great functional option for this web page. So let's say, for example, we go to player 7. Well, all of a sudden, the internal player bonus went to 4, right? And then if I was to say party members in the same area, and let's just say it's 5, you'll notice again that my internal player bonus is increasing. So as a reminder, what this is basically doing is giving you an internal bonus that will decrease the no drop chances. Now, let me take this off special monster real quick because in some cases, these special monsters always drop items. So let's go to normal. So as I look at a normal monster in Act 1 Hell, in this case, it's an Afflicted, right? We're looking at Catacombs level 3. In the current settings of 200 magic find, 7 players, and 5 party members in the area of the kill, there is a no drop chance of 4.76%. Notice all of a sudden if I change this to 1, so I'm just maybe doing split MF or I'm doing solo finds in player 7 games, well now all of a sudden it drastically reduced where my no drop went from 4% to 14%. So you can get really quirky and have some fun with these calculators here on this site to understand based on where I think my kill speed and efficiencies are. I can maybe do P3 and P5 if I'm in a party versus not, my magic find splits, how do those basically look and function? So wanted to show you a few of those examples. Love this site for that reason. Similar again to the others, it's a little bit of a different classification, but you can of course look across champions and so on. You can choose the axe and again all the monsters that come up with this. But this is actually a little bit cool, and again I enjoy the way this calculator surfaces information personally. So if I, for example, didn't necessarily want to look at the targeted item itself, so again, let's kind of go back to the Crown of Ages example. If I want to understand, and actually let's honestly put this to, we can keep this in River of Flame, and let's just go to Burning Souls. Okay. So if I'm saying, okay, if I'm looking for champion souls, or in this case, I mean, it would really, in Plains of Despair, can they drop Crown of Ages? If you click detailed chances here, you will notice that the surfaced information comes very quickly. It does classify here that you cannot find it. There's also something interesting here. Let me actually downgrade this a bit. Let's do an Alma Negra so you can see what it shows. So this is showing you the information. It's showing you the relative and absolute chances, the ratio, but I also love that it's showing the Q level. I think some people may not know what this is. There are quality levels of items, and specifically there are 2 different quality levels. There is a lowercase q level, which as you can see here is the actual base classification itself. And Alma Negra is a Sacred Rondochet, which is telling you that based on a champion, the level 85 and the treasure class table, a Burning Soul has the ability to roll that base item type based on the TC. However, what's important is that in order to roll a unique, the monster level has to be the right amount or greater. So in this particular case, you'll see that in order to roll an Alma Negra, which is the unique roll of the Sacred Rondochet, the monster has to be 85 or greater, which this is showing a lowercase q. Other sites show it as a capital Q to kind of emphasize and punctuate the difference between the two. But I appreciate the amount of information that this is actually showing. But taking a step back here, if we wanted to just look at, and you can see these different options here, you can say, show all drops from the source, in this case, Burning Soul, show the unique set, and so on. If I click sort by name, now this is showing me very easily again, from a champion Burning Soul with 200 magic, find with an internal player bonus of 4. What are all of the different uniques and their ratios and the relation that you can drop in the game? It's pretty cool. I really enjoy this calculator. Obviously, they each have their own benefits. I do think that this one does have some really strong uniqueness and benefits to it that you don't find across the others. And I will, again, make that hypothesis that this has definitely been still flying under the radar. And yes, it doesn't have D2R. I get it. But I would definitely recommend checking this out. So this site specifically was recently sent to me by one of my close friends. I never heard of it before, but I've recently spent a lot of time with it, and I really have loved everything that this site provides, and I personally will be using this on the go forward in Diablo 2 Resurrected. While this isn't your formal drop calculator in that it doesn't showcase the ratios of relatives and absolutes, what it does simply focus on, almost similar like a Silospen, is it just simply tells you what are the bosses and what items can they drop. So you'll notice here it says Bossdrop. So we're talking about bosses specifically. We're not talking about minions or champs or uniques. And it is upgraded for D2R 2.4 patch. So a lot of people like to say, where can I actually get Tyrael's Might? So you'll see very quickly in real time and speed, it delivers this in a clean grid, and it shows you across normal, nightmare, and hell where these items can actually drop. So not surprisingly, on a boss basis, Nilithak, Bale, and his waves are eligible to drop Tyrael's Might. Now, we know that Tyrael's Might can drop from champs or uniques in 85 areas due to their monster level modifiers and TC upgrading. But again, that's not the purpose of this site. I think that a lot of people in Diablo love to grind and farm bosses. It's part of your sequences. You don't necessarily care about busting mobs of champs and uniques. You just like to do your Andy, your Duriel, your Mephisto, your Bale, your Diablo runs, and quite frankly, that's okay. That's your personal choice. So in the same vein, if we wanted to understand where a Shaco could run, well, in this case, it shows you that you can actually get this from a Mephisto or an Andy in Nightmare, but it does again start to drop in Bale. But in the same vein, if you wanted to look at a Viper Magi, which is a very heavily coveted mid-exceptional unique, you can find that from even the Countess, Andy, Summoner, and so on. And so, and even starting to find this actually into Nightmare starting at Diablo. I will have this link below, similar to the other resources. It's super easy to use. Kudos to whoever built this. I would love to meet you someday and see what else you can deliver. But hopefully you guys found the joy in this that I did, as it is another great, amazing new D2R resource at our disposal.
Sanctuary, you made it. Thanks for tuning in. Before you go, smash that like and subscribe button to continue supporting content development on my channel. If you want to join the Horde and I the next time I broadcast live on Twitch, feel free to drop a follow linked below. Stay safe, keep grinding, and see Vispacem Parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war theory.